Hi, welcome to episode 35 of the Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace. This is another Wednesday Quick Hits episode. Let me touch on a few news items real quick. Paul Jenkins, the new writer on Spawn, starting with Spawn Resurrection out today and continuing in Spawn 251, announced huge, massive, sweeping changes for Spawn and the Spawn universe, so we'll look forward to that. Also, the CW announced the finale dates for The Flash and Arrow. That's May 19th and May 13th, respectively. Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk, a couple of fan-favorite actors from the Firefly series from way back when at Fox, have announced a new series that they're crowdfunding through Indiegogo. It's going to be called Con Man, and it stars Tudyk and Fillion as stars of a former sci-fi television series that only lasted one season and then got canceled, but has a huge cult following. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. So Tudyk apparently has had this one-and-done series and not found much success beyond that, whereas Nathan Fillion's character has gone on to have what's described as Matt Damon-type success. So it sounds like it could be a pretty fun series. We'll see where it goes. Marvel has announced that they will be revisiting their Days of Future Past world or universe in the upcoming Secret Wars event that's going on in June. This new miniseries is going to be written by Marguerite Bennett with art by Mike Norton, and it's entitled Years of Future Past. Also, Scott Snyder, the writer on Batman, has hinted at massive sweeping changes coming to the title come June. We also learned in the June solicits from DC that Kyle Rayner apparently is going to be dead. And in addition to Snyder's changes on Batman, you can expect a new Batman Beyond and a new Earth 2 Batman. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming to the DC Universe in June, and it certainly will be exciting to see what comes up next. The first book I want to talk about is Detective Comics Endgame #1, written by Brian Buccellato, with art by Roge Antonio and Ronan Cliquet, and colors by Nick Filardi. I really enjoyed this issue. As the title states, it's set in the setting of Gotham City during the Endgame story that's going on in the main Batman book right now. And basically what's happened is the Joker's kind of released this slight modified version of the Joker Venom, which has basically turned everybody into kind of a raving lunatic. They all walk around with these sadistic grins on their face, committing acts of violence and attacking each other. So Gotham right now isn't a very nice place to be. And that kind of sets it up for the heroes of this story. And there are a bunch of teenagers, some we've seen before in other Batman books, some are brand new. And I believe the story is going to lead directly into the We Are Robin title coming from DC Comics in June, written by Lee Bermejo. So it was really nice to see these young kids kind of bond together and use their particular skills to save the mother of one of the kids. They certainly seem to take some responsibility and some pride in their city, and they're a very diverse mix of kids. And so if this is anything like what We Are Robin is going to be, then I'm in. It was a very enjoyable story, quick, witty dialogue, and very believable characterization from Buccellato. And the job by the artist, it was reasonably well done. Not the greatest rendering in the world. The art wasn't super clean, but the storytelling from panel to panel was excellent, as were the facial expressions. So if you're a Batman fan, or you're looking forward to the We Are Robin title, I definitely would suggest picking this up. It could be that we've got our glimpse at who the main characters of that title are going to be, with the exception of Duke Thomas, who we know is going to be one of the stars of We Are Robin, but didn't appear in this book. The next book I'm going to talk about is the series finale of Green Lantern Corps. That's issue 40. This issue is written by Van Jensen with art by Bernard Chang and Mirko Kolak, and exceptional colors as usual by Marcelo Maiello. So this was basically kind of a redemption story of sorts for John Stewart. We know that he was responsible for the destruction of a planet way back when, and he's kind of carried that guilt and burden around ever since then. Well, in this final issue of Green Lantern Corps, we learned that it may not have been 100% his fault, and he has a chance when faced with a similar situation to have a different outcome. So I won't spoil it here, but as I said, it seems like a redemption. It seems like he's eased some of his guilt, and knowing that this series is ending, knowing that Hal Jordan has left the Green Lantern Corps come June, and that the Green Lantern Corps itself is going to be disappearing from the DC Universe in June and moving over to the title The Lost Army, where they're in a different universe or a different dimension, certainly sets up some interesting questions of how they're going to get from where this series ended and where Green Lantern's New Guardians has ended and even Red Lantern's has ended to where they're going to be in the Lost Army. So I look forward to that. It seems like there's going to be definitely a shift in gears with the Green Lantern family of books, a different direction going forward, and hopefully it's as good as what the creative teams on the respective books have been doing so far, because I've really enjoyed the Green Lantern books for the last couple of years. That being said, I think Cullen Bunn is a great writer. He's going to be writing The Lost Army, so look forward to that. Also, I should mention that Van Jensen, the writer for Green Lantern Corps, is another great up-and-coming writer. He doesn't have any titles on the slate for the DC mini relaunch in June, but I know he has some projects in the works, so I'll definitely keep my eye out for those and let you know when I hear something or something's coming up soon. It was actually a very heavy week for Marvel books. A lot of new, interesting titles starting, or titles that are just starting that were on issue 2 or 3, and then a couple titles that are actually wrapping up. So, as I said, a very heavy week for Marvel. It made it kind of hard to choose which books I should focus on, but I decided I was going to talk about Howard the Duck #1, simply because I want to hopefully save you all from making the same mistake I did, which is namely reading this book. It's very rare that a comic irritates me, but this comic did, mainly because I just felt like it was a complete waste of my time, and I didn't like it at all. There's no other way to say it. The art was extremely inconsistent. The story was choppy. I found Howard the Duck to be an extremely unlikable character, and I just didn't really find any reason that I would read this book under normal circumstances, other than I wanted to try it out to see what it was going to be like. That way I could share my thoughts with all you guys. So I should say that Howard the Duck is written by Chip Zdarsky. The art is handled by Joe Quinones, and the colors are by Rico Renzi. And as I said, Howard comes across as a very unlikable character. The art was so inconsistent that for a few pages there I thought that maybe a different artist had filled in, but I couldn't find in the credits anywhere where it said there was another artist. Apparently all the art was handled by Joe Quinones. So I didn't understand why the shift in the middle few pages where the art looked completely different. As I said, I couldn't find a reason to read it. I won't be reading issue 2. If you're curious about it or you thought about picking it up to try it out, don't. It's really one of the worst comics I can remember in memory that I've read. Just a waste of money. I don't know what Marvel's thinking. I don't know if it's because of the success of Harley Quinn over at DC that Marvel seems to want to do these funny books, trying to inject humor into every comic. It makes for very uneven storytelling, in my opinion. They seem to have tried to inject humor in Spider-Gwen as well, and also to some degree in the Silk title. For me, it just doesn't work. Whether or not those other titles have redeeming qualities is another discussion. Howard the Duck doesn't. Save your money. Skip it. Next book I'm going to talk about from Marvel, in strong contrast to Howard the Duck, is Fantastic Four number 644. This book is written by James Robinson. Pencils are handled by Leonard Kirk. The inks are by Scott Hanna and Carl Kiesel. The colors are by Jesus Arbitov and Tamara Bonvillain. So, as I said, a strong contrast to Howard the Duck. I definitely recommend picking up this book. My favorite thing about what Robinson has done with the Fantastic Four since he started his run is he's made the title feel relevant again. And by that I mean he's made it feel like a real linchpin to the universe. If you're at all interested in Secret Wars, you need to be reading the Fantastic Four. It definitely sets up some of what I believe we're going to see come June in the Secret War crossover. And as I said, it just seems to really touch on the entirety of the Marvel Universe, the very fabric of it. In this issue, we see guest appearances by Namor, Jim Hammond, the Sleepwalker, and Wyatt Wingfoot is in it as well. This story definitely felt like classic Fantastic Four from the John Byrne era, when the Fantastic Four was relevant and things that happened in that book really affected the rest of the Marvel Universe. So there's only one more issue to go before Fantastic Four is going to come to an end. Not sure what's going to happen with that title going forward. Don't know if they're going to relaunch once the Secret Wars are over, if it's going to go on hiatus for a while, with Marvel not wanting to give any promotion or help out the Fox movie at all. It's really up in the air, but I'd love to see James Robinson continue on the Fantastic Four, especially if it's kind of a soft reset going forward for the Marvel Universe. As I said, an excellent issue, a lot of action. We see the Sleepwalker take part of the team, Franklin Richards and Sue Richards, the Invisible Woman, along with Namor and Jim Hammond, into the Dream World to try to stop the things that are going on there. Meanwhile, Reed and Sue's daughter Val, along with Reed himself, are confronting the Quiet Man. You have the Thing, along with the Avengers, fighting evil versions of the Avengers from an alternate universe. So, as I said, it definitely ties into Secret War with these other dimensions and these other alternate reality characters and these incursions where two realities meet. It was a fast-paced story. The art was very good. very clean lines, even with so many characters in a lot of the battle scenes. Also, the colors are very vibrant. Just, as I said, a very good classic Marvel comic. To me, this comic reminds me of what was so great about Marvel Comics back in the day, and hopefully they can find a way to recapture that going forward after Secret Wars. Now on to my book of the week for this week. It's actually Ninjak #1 from Valiant Comics. I've been eagerly awaiting this title for a while now. I was actually a big Ninjak fan from back in the 1990s, as cheesy as he was, and this title blows that old title out of the water. It's written by Matt Kindt, the pencils are handled by Clay Mann, the inks are by Seth Mann, and the colors are by Ulysses Arola. So I love the way Matt Kindt has set up this book. It's basically learning about Ninjak, or Colin King, in 3 different time periods. You get some flashback scenes with him as a very small child, seeing him in his formative years, trying to understand how he became who he is now. Those are interspersed in the main story with pages of Ninjak in action today, and we see that he's undertaken a mission to go after a cabal known as the Secret Seven. Only the identity of one of them is known, and Ninjak is sent out to hopefully discover the identities of the other 6 and stop them once and for all. The 3rd time period is actually in a backup feature in the back of the book. It's also written by Matt Kindt, but there the art duties are handled by Butch Geis, with Ulysses Arola again handling the colors. These are tales of Ninjak at his greenest when he very first was recruited to become a spy. So we see him on one of his first missions. He's extremely green, he's extremely nervous, and I feel it has a way of humanizing the character. Ninjak has seemed to be very calm and cool and collected, faced with even the most insurmountable odds whenever he's appeared in the Valiant universe to this point. So it was great to kind of see the human side of him when he first was starting out, and I definitely look forward to these backup features going forward. What's great about what Valiant has done is these backup features don't appear in the back of the book at the expense of pages for the main story. Even though the book is oversized, it's still at the same $3.99 price point. Now, as I said, I had a lot of anticipation for this book, and my expectations were pretty high, and those expectations were met and even to some point exceeded. This really felt like the start of something from Matt Kindt. If I could use only one word to describe the book, I would say cinematic. Matt Kindt has made it feel very epic, very much like a movie going forward, and Clay Mann's beautiful art definitely contributes to that. There's a widescreen feel to the layouts and the panels. The colors are beautifully done, and I just can't say enough about how much I love Clay Mann's art. There's very much a realistic feel to the book. It's very easy to identify with Ninjak as the main character. You feel like you're part of his inner circle and watching this incredible drama and epic story about to unfold. I have a feeling that Ninjak's going to quickly become one of my favorite books, a book that's going to rise all the way to the top of the stack every Wednesday when it comes out. One of those books that I just can't wait to read. I'll be very interested to see what the sales numbers look like on Ninjak, how popular this book becomes. I can easily see it becoming one of the top 2 or 3 Valiant books. Once again, Valiant's blown it out of the water, putting out a great high-quality book, tons of action, very tight writing, very good continuity, tying it in with the rest of the Valiant universe, and I really think that Ninjak's going to be a title a lot of people are going to be talking about. Okay, let me give a rundown of a few other titles that came out this Wednesday, March 11th, that I think you should take note of. New Suicide Squad #8, written by Sean Ryan, with the whole slew of artists. Let me go down the list real fast. Had Tom Denerick on layouts, Rob Hunter, Scott Hanna, Philippe Baronis, and Mark Morales all contributed to the art. That being said, that may be part of the reason the art in this book is so, not even sure, rough, I guess would be the word. It doesn't feel finished, feels rushed. This book was so beautiful when it first came out, when Jeremy Roberts was handling the art. I don't know if it's because he left unexpectedly, that the art team has been in such a state of flux, but I hope they can nail it down to just 2 or 3 artists, and they can get focused and put out some good art going forward. The story has been a little inconsistent as well. I have a feeling that the problems on the art side have contributed to that feeling of being inconsistent. We have the new Suicide Squad movie coming out next year, so if that movie turns out to be a big hit, DC is definitely going to want to have a quality Suicide Squad book out on the shelves in order to capitalize on that popularity. I also want to mention Spawn Resurrection #1. As mentioned in the news at the top of the show, Paul Jenkins has some very big changes planned for Spawn going forward, and he starts it out in this Spawn Resurrection issue. This issue kind of gives an explanation of how Al Simmons is going to make his return as Spawn. The art by John Boy Myers was extremely good. So for those of you that are Spawn fans, I'm sure you're going to be very excited about this new direction. And it seems like Paul Jenkins has a very good handle on the character, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. Also going to mention Star Wars number 3, written by Jason Aaron and art by John Cassaday, with colors by Laura Martin. This finishes off the first arc of the Marvel relaunch of Star Wars. It was a good way to wrap up the story. It felt a little choppy in places, and I thought that the storytelling from panel to panel could have been a little better, but it was a satisfying conclusion to the first story arc, and it seems like Marvel definitely has a hit on its hands with the new Star Wars title. The next book I'm going to talk about is Ant-Man number 3, written by Nick Spencer. The art is by Ramon Rosales, and the colors are by Jordan Boyd. Taskmaster makes an appearance in this issue, and there's somewhat of a one-sided fight with Ant-Man. Taskmaster has always been one of my favorite villains. Nick Spencer's a great writer, so I expect Ant-Man to continue to be a really enjoyable book. Also from Image Comics, East of West 18 came out today. This is the post-apocalyptic / western / political drama from Jonathan Hickman. The art is by Nick Dragotta, and the colors are by Frank Martin. This continues to be a very interesting book. A lot of people consider this one of the best comics being put out today. Even though it's up to issue 18, for me personally, I'm still kind of undecided. It's either very, very good or very, very poor. I go back and forth about the way I feel about it based on just perhaps the pace of the storytelling. If you haven't tried East of West, I'd say pick up an issue and read it. It's like nothing else out there on the stands, and maybe you can decide for yourself. The next book I want to mention real quick is Guardian Team Up number 2. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, and the art in issue 2 was handled by Stefan Roux and Jay Leistein, with colors by Brett Smith. It's a somewhat satisfying conclusion to the story that started in issue 1 with the Guardians teaming up with the Avengers. I think perhaps Guardian Team Up might work better as a book when they're teaming up with individuals that come in and we can see that individual interact with the Guardians themselves, rather than mashing two teams together, and then you have so many characters in the book that it's hard for anyone to really get any character time to get a feel for the characters and how they interact with each other. Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man number 11 also came out. This book is also written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by David Marquez and colors by Justin Ponzer. This is the next to last issue of Ultimate Spider-Man before the series comes to an end with the start of Secret Wars, and Brian Michael Bendis is certainly putting Miles Morales in some very difficult situations. This book continues to be a very, very enjoyable book, and I'm going to be sad to see it go. I certainly expect Miles Morales to continue either in a new Ultimate Universe or in the Marvel Universe proper. He's just too good of a character and too popular for Marvel to let him just sit on the sidelines without a title of his own. Spider-Gwen issue 2 also came out today. This book is written by Jason Latour with art by Robbie Rodriguez. The story was greatly improved. I just don't know that I'll stick around much past maybe one more issue if I don't see some continued growth in the character and a vast improvement in the art. And finally, the last book I'm going to mention is Postal II. This book is written by Brian Edward Hill and Matt Hawkins. The art chores are handled by Isaac Goodhart. The colors are by Betsy Gagne, and the letters are by Troy Pateri. This continues to tell the story of a small town that's inhabited by nothing but criminals, and at the end of the last issue we saw there was a murder in the town. Town people, we learned in this issue, kind of covered up. They're trying to pretend it didn't happen. They don't want to attract the attention of any outside authorities. Definitely a book I would give to someone who's not a comic book reader but is perhaps interested in comics. This is one of those books that really shows what the medium can do and how far you can really get away from the superhero genre and still have an enjoyable book. So that's it for another episode of Wednesday Quick Hits. I want to thank you all for watching. Join me next time when I talk about the small press publisher Dark Planet Comics and their awesome title, Silver. I'll see you then.